Voice of Change News.
This is Voice of Change Radio News. I'm Amanda Kumalo. A quick look at stories making the headlines. Electoral system watertight to rig, Zanu Pf. In business news, Zimbabwe tipped to dominate Africa's steel production. In regional and international news, re-engagement drive paying off Diplomats. In sports news, Dembare hunt for new coach. The news in detail. Zanu Pf does not rig elections as claimed by opposition parties due to watertight electoral systems, but wins resoundingly on the strength of its popular support as evidenced by strong attendance at rallies. The Revolutionary Party's national chairperson, Comrade Opamchunguri Kashiri, said yesterday. She said that this while addressing hundreds of party supporters at Nyamunga Primary School. Comrade Mchunguri Kashiri said while there might be electoral disputes that arise, the democratic space that exists allows for aggrieved parties to seek legal recourse. Meanwhile, MDCT leader Mr. Douglas Monzora yesterday announced he had pulled out of the August 23 presidential race, claiming that the playing field is uneven. But the Zimbabwe Election Commission confirmed he remains on the presidential ballot since he missed the 21-day deadline for withdrawal. The Electoral Act lays down that a withdrawal in the presidential election must be done at least 21 days before the election day. Mr. Monzora's reason was the rejection by ZEC of the nominations of 87 of his party's candidates for the National Assembly elections on the grounds that they had not paid the required fee. Moving on to business news, Zimbabwe is set to become Africa's largest steel producer and 7th in the world when the Dinson Iron and Steel Company Zimbabwe Disco plant in Manise becomes operational. The latest figures from the World Steel Association suggest the Manise plant, being constructed to the tune of $1 billion, will be commissioned in phases, starting with an annual production of 600,000 tons, which will be gradually ramped up to 1.2 million in the second phase, 2.4 million in the third phase, and 5 million in the final phase, according to Disco's production projections. In regional and international news, outgoing Algerian ambassador to Zimbabwe, Noureddin Yazid, and Apostolic Nuncio of the Holy See, Archbishop Paulo Rudel, yesterday paid farewell courteous calls on President Mnangagwa following the conclusion of their diplomatic missions to Zimbabwe, where they praised the re-engagement drive and citizens' faith in God. The two diplomats commended the Second Republic, saying Zimbabwe's diplomatic offensive under the engagement and re-engagement drive was bearing fruit as relations between their countries and Harare had improved significantly in the last 5 years. Zimbabwe has declared that it is a friend to all and enemy to none, and all countries wishing to establish or re-establish relations are welcome. And finally, in sports news, Dynamos have begun search for a foreign coach to replace Herbert Marua, who was fired for poor results yesterday. He was given until end of day today to surrender all the club's property in his possession. This comes as Serbian coach Kostar Papic has been linked with the Giants again. Second assistant coach Murape and long-serving manager Richard Chiworo were suspended without pay pending disciplinary action. Murape and Chiworo were given until end of day yesterday to hand over everything related to their jobs to the club secretariat. This even included the Premier Soccer League accreditation cards. They have been barred from the club's premises, training, and even contacting members of the club telephonically. That brings us to the end of this bulletin.
Voice of Change News.